When William Samuel Cox first put pen to paper in 1922, he set out about crafting a narrative that would captivate audiences generation after generation. There were tales about the sun and the stars up in the sky, surprise guests who have bolted from the blue, those who came from heaven or made the earth rumble underfoot, and a legend known as Babe, who quite simply flew.
But Dulcify well clear. Brent Thompson going for his fourth Cox Plate. Dulcify's won by a minute.
There were divas and princes and fighting tigers that would roar. Characters came in all shapes and colours, and royalty would enter folklore.
At his 10th start, he wins his second Cox Plate. Bart's done it again.
There were sprightly young maidens and seasoned old warriors, travellers who came from afar to conquer new lands. Weapons always drawn, superheroes at the ready, giants doing battle. 30,000 in the stand.
The roars of the crowd. He races up to our Waverley Star. 100 out. Bone Crusher, our Waverley Star. Stride for stride. Nothing in it. Our Waverley Star, the rails. Bone Crusher, the outside. And Bone Crusher races into equine immortality.
But the story of an immortal was saved for a conquering king.
Kingston Town swamping them. What a run. Kingston Town wins it
and his queen.
Cometh the hour, cometh the legend, Winx has done it!
The next chapter will soon be written, and is one that must be seen.
Yes, good evening everyone and welcome to the legendary launch tonight for, of course, the Ladbrokes Cox Plate Carnival. It's a virtual, we're becoming used to them, aren't we, under the COVID restrictions, but it's an honour to be here and presenting to you over the next hour or so everything that's relevant around the Cox Plate Carnival. Not only the 100th running of the Cox Plate, but of course the 53rd running of the Manikato Stakes. We're just 17 days away from the Cox Plate, and tonight we'll be talking to many of the key players around, as I say, the 100th running of that famous race. Racing has continued through COVID. What an extraordinary performance by all participants through Racing Victoria, all the racing clubs, the trainers, the jockeys, those track work riders that get up at 3 o'clock every morning to be a part of the racing game. We thank you for keeping racing going, and we're now counting down 17 days away from the Cox Plate. We welcome our partners tonight, you, the members, the partners like Channel 7 and Racing.com that will bring you all the entertainment around the Ladbrokes Cox Plate Carnival. And what a race is expected. Aidan O'Brien is back, as you've just seen in the opener. He's back with a couple of good horses. Armory is the question mark. Is he good? You know, how good is he going towards the Cox Plate? And of course, Magic Wander's back after running so well in the race 12 months ago. Then there's Russian Camelot, the horse that stands proud going into this Saturday and then the Cox Plate. Chris Waller is there, Humidor. Can he do it? Can he finally crack it in the 100th running of the Cox Plate? And then, dare I forget, the 3-year-olds. The Manikato Stakes the night before. It's all going to unfold in 16 and 17 days' time. Tonight, we're here for you. If you've got any questions that you want to ask, as you watch us, you can click on the chat function. You can send us a message. And if you do send through a question over the next hour or so, there's something very special that you could be winning at the end of tonight. Michael Browell is joining us, the CEO at the Valley. Michael, I welcome you officially. We can't wait for this to really unfold.
It's fabulous, isn't it, Andrew? When you have a look at what's unfolded since March, when, of course, COVID landed here in Australia, the Grand Prix was cancelled at late notice and we got through the tail end of the night racing season. The last 6 months has gone quickly in a way. Now we look forward to delivering a spectacular 2020 Ladbrokes Cox Plate Carnival, October 23 and 24.
There's so much that will unfold in the next under 3 weeks. But as it stands right now with COVID and the like, I mean, the racing game is on and we're enjoying it.
Of course, racing's done a fantastic job and I'll congratulate all all industry participants, all industry stakeholders for the fabulous work they've done in adhering to the strict biosecurity protocols that were introduced. We've run over 2,000 races since COVID did hit our shores, so it's a credit to everybody. Now we look forward to what should be a magnificent 2020 Spring Racing Carnival.
Talking of magnificent, is it something I can touch, the Cox Plate? This is a famous Cox Plate.
Put a glove on and I'm sure you can hold it. Yeah, this year we've struck a special commemorative Cox Plate to mark Ladbrokes Cox Plate 100. Solid 9-carat gold, valued at over $200,000. You can see it sitting on the plinth there, the famous illustrious honour roll of WS Cox Plate champions. 99 names engraved on that, and we're looking forward to engraving a 100th on the 24th of October. And of course the beautiful Manikato Stakes trophy. 5 diamonds in the horseshoe at the top there, representing Manikato's 5 wins in the William Reid Stakes at Moonee Valley back in the late 70s, early 80s.
And we should mention, people are saying this is the 100th Cox Plate 100. It was run twice in the 1 year.
Yeah, of course, when you saw the opener there, launched in 1922. So coming out of the Second World War in 1946, there was 2 divisions. With $5 million of prize money on offer, there won't be 2 divisions again this year. I can promise you that. But no, it's a spectacular, the history and the tradition behind the WS Cox Plate, and to see those names on the plinth there, but also the winner's wall at the Valley, it really does show that every champion that's graced the Australian turf has won the Cox Plate.
Michael, another key day today with another set of acceptances or declarations for the Cox Plate. Sadly, Glenfiddich was there. Now the horse has suffered a breathing issue that has to undergo a minor surgery on Thursday, but we've still got a good mixture.
Yeah, we have, Andrew. We've taken 3rd declarations this afternoon for the WS Cox Plate. We did have Glenfiddich in there, of course, but news came through about 3 o'clock that he now needs minor surgery. I'm excited. 7 3-year-olds, of course. We've got the Caulfield Guineas this weekend, and up in Sydney, the Spring Champion Stakes. So interesting to hear connections of Love Tap come through and confirm. If he can win the Spring Champion Stakes, he'll be coming down to run in the Ladbrokes Cox Plate. And the 4 internationals. We're still counting Sir Dragonet out of Ballydoyle. He's been transferred across to Mar Eustace now that he's been bought by an Australian syndicate. Looking forward to see what he can do. And the form around Armoury, of course, 3rd in the Irish Champion Stakes behind Magical and Guiarth a couple of weeks ago. 4th in that race was a horse called Sostas, who came out and won what I think is regarded as the greatest race in the world, the Arc in Paris on the weekend. So if you like that form, still good odds available for Armoury.
The quality of Aidan O'Brien's horses for the Cox Plate and for other races. I mean, he loves Melbourne, which is fantastic for us. The $5 million Ladbrokes Cox Plate, that's fantastic. Wish I had a horse that was running in it for the $5 million, but there's an extra $1 million as well.
Of course, I'll credit Racing Victoria and our principal partner Ladbrokes to support the Ladbrokes Cox Plate to retain prize money at the $5 million. First and foremost, that's a fabulous effort, and you look at the money still on offer through these feature races across the Melbourne Spring Carnival, it's as high as it's ever been. But in addition to that, last year, with the support of Ladbrokes, we launched the Ladbrokes Cox Plate Boost Series. We're running that series again this year, 13 races in total, 11 domestic and 2 internationals, where the winner of these qualifying races stand to win a bonus of $1 million if they can win the 2020 Ladbrokes Cox Plate. So instead of taking home a first prize of $3 million, they'll be taking home a first prize of $4 million. Last year, of course, Liz Grachou, she won the international bonus, took home $5 million, and that's the biggest prize ever won by one set of connections in the history of Australian racing.
Bring it on, the boost as well to that $5 million. And you mentioned the 9-carat trophy that we've spoken about. It's an incredible, a legendary moment coming up in 17 days' time. Wonderful partners. I mean, the crucial thing with a lot of businesses has been COVID and the impact, but it's been fantastic how all of them have stayed with you.
It's been a tremendous response from our partners this year. When it first did break, the COVID pandemic, those conversations with sponsors were important, and the team have done a fantastic job. We've built up some solid relationships over the journey, and I'm pleased to say that all of the sponsors have stuck with us for this year's Cox Plate Day. So sponsors such as Inglis, Sweps, McCafe, Drummond Golf, Powerflow, Strathmore Community, Bendigo Bank, PFD Food Services. We've had Lexus come on board this year, which is great. And of course, Ladbrokes fantastic sponsors of racing here in Victoria and great supporters of the team at the Valley.
And they're the top brands, aren't they? They want to be a part of the 100th running.
Of course, and with the 100th running of the Cox Plate this year falling on AFL Grand Final Day, it's the other way around. The AFL Grand Final's falling on Cox Plate Day. The exposure that we'll get through a free-to-air broadcast on Channel 7. I know Lewis Martin and his team are planning a spectacular coverage from 11:30 in the morning through until 10 o'clock at night when they hand over the AFL Premiership Cup. So it's going to be a spectacular day in Australian sport. And of course, we've got the Ladbrokes Manikato Stakes on the Friday night, which is a full-day public holiday in Melbourne. If you've still got a bit of juice in the tank afterwards, the NRL Grand Final on the Sunday.
It is. It's going to be a monster. Now, Michael, I guess the one thing as it stands right now, and we know under all the COVID members and people that are watching us tonight, that this can change. But at this stage, you're probably looking at having no public being able to go to the races, but this is a moving sphere.
Yeah, it is, Andrew, and it's something that our chairman, Don Casbolt, our committee and the executive team, we're working very closely through state government and also Racing Victoria, making sure that if there is an opportunity to bring a crowd, now whether that's members, whether that's sponsors, a combination, I don't think we'll have big numbers coming through. It's moving on a day-by-day basis. We were encouraged, of course, with the movement in the step back with the restrictions. So originally it was the 26th of October. We were on the wrong side of that being the 23rd and 24th, but it was announced a couple of weeks ago that potentially comes back to the 19th. So for the members that are watching tonight and the sponsors that are watching, just know that your committee and the executive team, we are doing all that we can to have a presence on course for the carnival.
So I like being positive normally, but I hope we can get some people there. But if we can't, I know Moonee Valley is doing a lot that you can help those members that are watching us tonight and others to be a part of the day.
Of course, Andrew. So as I mentioned, Channel 7, it'll be a fantastic coverage on free-to-air, racing.com for a more racing-focused presentation. Our audio partners, whether it's SEN, whether it's RSN, 3AW have come on board, and our print partners led by the Herald Sun. So the coverage will be first class. The team have also introduced a number of initiatives for those celebrating at home. We've got the legendary hampers that can be purchased through the Cox Plate website or thevalley.com.au. We've got many members enjoying the hamper tonight. We've launched them for this event tonight, sitting at home watching this on their screens, enjoying a fantastic dinner. And then each of the supporting events leading into the carnival, there are hampers available, and then of course the legendary So You Think hamper on Cox Plate Day. Collector's edition also will be the special commemorative mask. It's become a collector's edition now. We've had to do a second run on these. So once again, jump on the website. And of course, the commemorative pin.
Yep.
So supporting the Royal Children's Hospital, Victoria and Tasmania. They do a fantastic job in the community. All proceeds will go to that wonderful charity. Jump on the website. You can purchase a pin for $5.
Okay, so it's certainly going to a terrific cause. We're going to talk shortly to Bruce McAvaney and to Jason Richardson. They're going to reminisce with us tonight around the 99 runnings. Have you got a favourite?
If I just focus on my time in the chief executive role...
And that's really just nearly 12 years?
Yeah, so I arrived just before Maldivians win in 2008. But I look back to what it will be potentially on the 24th, a very different on-course experience. But if I go back to October 2018, the build-up to Winx in 2017 to sit alongside Kingston Town, that was obviously a massive build-up and a fantastic day at the Valley. Of course, to have the news come through that she wouldn't travel across to Royal Ascot the following June, and Connections decided to keep her in work, and they targeted a fourth Cox Plate to have her sit at the absolute pinnacle of the legends that have won the race. On course that day, we had a sellout crowd. We had 38,000 people. Every square inch of grass was taken. The atmosphere was electric. Winx did what Winx does. She won her fourth, a fantastic celebration. And I think all of those that were on course that day would say that it would be one of the most special, spectacular days they've ever had on a race course. Yeah,
it was unbelievable. I love Maccabi Diva, just for my little piece. I loved that 8 or 10 across the line, around the bend. It was just unbelievable theatre.
It was the Cox Plate's got so many special memories, and everybody that's watching tonight, all the members of the club, all racing fans would be able to look at that plinth there. They'd look at the Cox Plate winners' wall, and they'd remember the Cox Plates they'd been to, you know, the Bone Crushers, the Kingston Towns, the Dulcifies, the Saintleys and Might and Power. So, no, we're very fortunate to have the history within the WS Cox Plate, and it's fantastic we get to celebrate it this year.
No doubt. 100th running of the Cox Plate is 17 days away. Tonight here we're going to reminisce around the last 99, and Bruce McAvaney and Jason Richardson are going to be joining us to reminisce and to relive some of their magical moments.
Well, the build-up to Cox Plate 100 has a legendary feel of it. And for the Moonee Valley Race Club members, set for a legendary night. And when I think of legends, I think of Bruce McAvaney, who's seen the Cox Plate develop. He's seen the highs and the lows of the race, both as a fan, as a caller, and as Australia's very best presenter. Bruce, this is going to be a labour of love. We're going to go down memory lane on an unbelievable race.
Sure do, Richo, and what memories we've got. I mean, I'm a bit older than you, so I started a bit earlier than you. Don't know, I was born in 1953, and I guess, you know, Tulloch in 1960 was such a big horse. I got to see him race at Cheltenham not long after his Cox Plate win, and it was such an emotional win when he won the Cox Plate. So that's probably where I sort of start from in about 1960. And of course, the race started in 1922, and already in those 20s they had some familiar faces in terms of Hall of Fames, Richo, didn't they? And then, of course, Farlap in 1930. But I guess my punctuation point's at about 1960.
I think we probably get our best memories or the most vivid memories when we're young and when we fall in love with the sport. So I suppose Tulloch, is that when you fell in love with the sport and fell in love with this race?
It is. I mean, he was such a remarkable horse, and my parents talked a lot to me about him, and of course he had the colic attack and he was out for 18 months, and you know, he probably missed the best years, but it was such an emotional win, as I said, when he won the Cox Plate, and it was even then the championship race, obviously. And living in South Australia, Richo, through the 1960s was a great place to be. I mean, we were winning all those big races with Bart Cummings and Colin Hayes and Graham Hegney, and then Mick Robins came along, of course, with Rain Lover when Graham took Tobin Bronze over to America. So you've got Tulloch in 1960, and then as far as the Cox Plate's concerned, the Tobin Bronze double, and look, he was this remarkable horse who had these rivalries with Galilee, and then he went off to America and ran in the Washington International just after that. But his second Cox Plate, I think he was a similar price to Farlap. He was probably the second shortest price favourite at the time when he won his second Cox Plate. So living in Adelaide and being so aware of what was going on in Melbourne in the spring, and the Cox Plate was jumping out at me from a very early age.
It is fascinating. I mean, my early childhood memories were probably Kingston Town. I can remember as a young kid hearing Kingston Town can't win. That was the third, but I think it was probably the first, because my dad was telling me all about this amazing horse down from Sydney in Kingston Town. And Bill Collins, and so much of it we live through the eyes of the callers, and we'll touch on your calling in a moment. When Kingston Town, who'd had that issue with getting around Caulfield, when he said, we'll see the real one today, as he just lobbed in behind and then shot away for a famous victory. I think I fell in love with the race then.
It was a wonderful time. He followed Dulcified too, Richo, who'd been such a remarkable winner, hadn't he? I mean, his victory was stunning in the Cox Plate. And as you say, Bill's calls, and the one that you just mentioned about, we'll seal the real Kingston Town today. And the shiver goes up your spine when you think about it. 3 different jockeys, the one trainer though, but 3 different jockeys in those Cox Plates, and all of them were very different. And the last one is, well, it's folklore. It's I mean, how can you get it down to 2, 3 or 4 or 5? But in my lifetime, his third Cox Plate's in the top 2 or 3 that I've ever seen or ever listened to and watched. But it was quite remarkable. It was historic at the time, and the way he overcame what seemingly was a huge setback through the race and was able to pick himself up and win is very much a part of Australian racing and a part of the Cox Plate, because he was the first to win 3, and if there was any doubt about what the championship race might have been in Australia, then certainly on that day we knew what it was.
You've touched on that South Australian flavour, and I probably didn't think about it until I now reflect. And you think about Dulcify and C.S. Hayes, and that was just when Brent Thompson was just dominating the race. The Cox Plate then versus the Cox Plate now, it's evolved so much.
It has. It is different. You talked about the Babe. He won 4 in 5 years. Now, Darby Munro's got the record with 5. They've been knocking on his door, haven't they, for such a long time. And the Babe absolutely dominated the race. Huey's doing pretty well because he's been riding Winx, so he jumped up in a hurry, a bit like Bossy in the Melbourne Cup. But look, it has changed. I mean, the marking of it's changed and the way it's presented has changed. And this year's going to be, unique. We know that, very different again. But the one thing that I think has been stable is the fact that it does bring together the best horses at 2,000 metres, probably from 1,600 metres to 2,400 metres, and you feel as if something is defined, Jason, on that day. You know when they're behind the barrier that something special is going to happen, that somebody is going to emerge as the best horse in Australasia after a couple of minutes, and that's what happens. So that tag of the Championship race of Australasia is true. It was true probably in 1926 and 27 when horses like Manfred and Amonis were going around leading into Far Lap in 30 and 31, and it's oh so true to this day. The big change, of course, has been the international flavour, and we've seen a bit of that in recent years.
Yes, the internationals are back, as we know, and among the group that we're expecting to see and crossing the fingers if everything goes to plan at quarantine at Werribee. Aspetar for Roger Charlton. We've got Magic Wand back, and Sir Dragonet has now joined the stables of Kieran Maher and David Eustace, and there's others as well as we build into the Cox Plate. Well, joining us now here in our preview for you guys at home or wherever you're watching us is George Samios. George is a fine wine director at Treasury Wine Estates, and, well, if that was cold, maybe we might taste it, George, in about an hour's time.
We probably can, but there's a red there. We might crack that one up, Andrew.
We might. Look, it's different because of COVID, but people are still going to be able to enjoy Manikato Stakes Night or Cox Plate Day.
Yeah, that's right, Andrew. And I think this time of year is exciting for all of us. Not only do we enjoy great racing, but for us, certainly in the wine industry, it's a time where we share great bottles of wine. And it's with pleasure again that Seppelt is involved yet again with the Ladbrokes Cox Plate Carnival. And the Racing Association with Seppelt goes back to the 70s, and in particular with Moonee Valley to the 1990s. And we've always seen that as an important time in the Australian sporting landscape. So it's with pleasure again that we're involved. And if you look at Seppelt, it's a great Victorian product. It's been here since 1851. Two brothers came from South Australia to grow tobacco. Actually, in South Australia, they were given free land. But then they heard about the golden nuggets that were in the ground of the Great Western Ballarat area, which was, of course, the goldfields. And so they came across to the goldfields and decided that wine was their thing. And when you can travel again, the open invitation is for all members to come and visit us at Great Western, where we still are. We'll take you downstairs, 2.5 kilometres of drives or tunnels, hand dug.
It won't matter, George. I'd drive miles to be able to do that at the moment.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, you'll just drive around the block, won't you? But, no, it's a great piece of Australian wine history. Come and visit us underground there, where we still store wine. And, since 1851, Seppelt has made amazing wines. And, one of our key times is obviously at this time of the year where we're getting ready for next year's vintage. And it's great to be part of the carnival, and for members in the next day or so, they'll get an invitation for a couple of things. One of them is to join our family and friends, our little community, so they can enjoy some great offers, get invited to some exclusive events. But more importantly, we've got a great event coming up as a lead up to the Ladbrokes Manikato Stakes on the Friday. As Michael said, it is a public holiday. The three wines in front of me. We'll host a little event, talk you through the wines. We'll have some other guests to talk about the fashion, the races, and maybe a little bit of football, given that it is the next day. But it'll be a great event. You'll get an invitation, I think, tomorrow in your email, so please look out for that. And these are the three wines that we'll be tasting. Great cool climate Chardonnay from the Henty area near Portland. A beautiful sparkling, which is, of course, what Seppelt has done so well now for more than 150 years. And then Shallumbar Shiraz, named after one of the vineyards there in the Grampians. So, racing, great wine, great food, friends.
I mean, you've got it all covered there. Temperatures are probably, it'll be 26, 27, 28 degrees. Book it in. Yep. You could start with the beautiful Chardonnay, but then as the day goes on, and then when Collingwood win the grand final, I'll be enjoying the Shiraz at the end.
And as a Collingwood supporter, it'll be the first time you've had something out of a bottle rather than the cask.
Exactly. Oh, come on, George, you can't be going at me. But the main thing is that people will be getting the email tomorrow, so keep an eye on that. But that will give them literally the taste of what you can offer once we're able to get out and about.
That's right. Enjoy the experience at home, and I think it's going to be a great carnival because of that. We're going to do things differently.
It is. Michael, it's great to have, as you said earlier, an array of sponsors, but certainly on this occasion, beautiful.
Of course, Seppelt through Treasury Wine Estate have been a great partner for the club for a long period of time. So we love the support that they provide, and we enjoy the product as well. So it's great that George has been able to come along tonight, and I look forward to joining George for the event in the lead up to the Ladbrokes Manikato Stakes on the 23rd of October.
And just when we're allowed to drive out and enjoy the country life, then we're going to go to Great Western, because you always drive and you feel like you've got to pull over and enjoy it, don't you?
Oh, it's a great spot,
Yeah.
great spot. And the communities, of course, will appreciate the visitors. And
Yep.
drop my name there. I'm not sure what you'll get out of it, but drop it anyway.
They'll probably drop kick out of me.
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, George, and we'll
you.
keep an eye on the email over the next 24 hours or so.
Thank you, Andrew.
George Samios joining us there. Let's go back and catch a little bit more about the memories of the Cox Plate with Richo and Bruce.
Bruce, what's it like to call the Cox Plate?
Wonderful, I love it because and I did quite a few for Channel 10 for their news, and because you're sitting on top of it, Richo, you're not far away, and one of the hardest things when you call it at Flemington, particularly, and Caulfield can be as well, is just the angles, whereas the Cox Plate, even though the pressure's on and you do shake before the home turn, you get a good view of everything. I called a few. I called the Bone Crusher race for Channel 10 News, and God blimey, it was just amazing. And I thought, Jason, I'd done a reasonable job until, unfortunately, you know what's coming, don't you? Yeah, you come on, ask me, what's coming?
Well, I just sensed that you might have made your way out of the calling box and then listened to Bill's.
Oh, I did. And I said something like, it's the greatest race I've ever seen. Who cares what the greatest race I've ever seen? But they want to know that Bone Crusher races into equine immortality. And the most beautiful thing about all of that was, well, two things for me as a broadcaster. How did you think of that, Bill? And how tiny was up the straight, just like Waverley Star and Bone Crusher. It's one of the great pieces of broadcasting anywhere, anytime in the whole of sport, in my opinion. So, Bill, why did you do it to me?
He's a mongrel, isn't he? He's that damn good. Did they go too early that year?
No, because they ran first and second. Look, so Gary Stewart had to probably outstay Lance O'Sullivan, because we didn't know. We'd seen Bone Crusher win the Tancred unbelievably, and then win the Derby in more workman-like fashion, and then he'd come to Caulfield, and we felt like he was our champion by the time he got to the Cox Plate, and along came another chestnut, and the build-up was as big as it gets. These two great horses, and they were different horses, and we were hearing from New Zealand that the other bloke might be better, and I think Gary Stewart decided, well, I've got to take something out of his legs. I've got to do something, and the rest is history. I talked about Kingston Town's third being, one of the two or three. Well, the 1986 Cox Plate is alongside Kingston Town's and the mare of recent times.
I was in T-shirt and shorts down in the beer garden in 1992. I was just a young racing fan. That was an unbelievable Cox Plate. Me and my mates, we always loved Super. We backed Super. Take us through that race, through your eyes, with Better Loosen Up. We all loved So Unlucky and Let's Elope, the interference, the fall. That Cox Plate literally had it all.
It had, and you're so right. I mean, when you looked at the horses in that Cox Plate, have we ever had a stronger one? I don't think we have, Richard. I reckon that collectively was the best group of horses. Naturalism was a short price favourite, even money favourite, and the fall, and then the protest at the end, and you had Let's Elope, who was a little bit past her absolute best of the year before, and Better Loosen Up. So you had these grand champions already there, and then you had Super, who had been placed in the Melbourne Cup, had won, 2 Doncasters and 2 Epsoms, and we thought was past his best, and yet he was able to come home with an incredible run. And it was, I think, in many ways, the most dramatic of them all in ways. I mean, we've had the Kingston Town Can't Win, the Bone Crusher, Winx going for 3 and then going for 4, and then the Diva with a tsunami wave. But as you say, I mean, so much happened, and so much happened in the last sort of 1,000 metres of the race. It was quite remarkable. Thinking about that and other things, one of the things that makes this race so special is that we've had 14 dual winners. We've had, with the Melbourne Cup, it's tough. We've had 5 of them. With the Golden Slipper, you only get the one. With most, the classic races, you only get the one. We've had, a dozen horses go back and win it again. We've had one horse go back and win it 3 times, and we've had another one go back and win it 4 times. And that sets the template for the next year, and that's what I think sets the Cox Plate apart in a way, Jason. And that championship thing, we have horses defending so often. We've seen some remarkable performances there, and I think the fact that we have continuity from year to year, it's a segue. And probably Sunline and Northerly is probably almost the best example of that over that period, and that makes, I think, the Cox Plate an even greater race because we're seeing those great champions return again.
Yes, there is an endless list of champions that have won the Cox Plate. 99 running so far. We're back with Richo and Bruce for a bit more in a moment. But right now, we're looking forward to seeing Russian Camelot, not only on Saturday, but then, of course, in the Cox Plate. And Danny O'Brien is joining us from home. Thanks a lot, Danny.
Pleasure, Andrew.
Danny, the build-up around this horse has been extraordinary, hasn't it? I guess it started off mid-year with the SA Derby, but right now, just off its last win, are you happy 17 days out from the Cox Plate?
We are, yeah. He's wintered exactly as we'd liked and made the natural improvement from South Australia to the weight for age racing. The 2 times we've tried him there at Flemington, the Mackay, and then at the Underwood, he stood up and delivered. And the market's got him favourite, so we're obviously on the right track with him. And physically and mentally, he's just going to a new level at the moment, and he'll need to with the competition he'll meet not only this Saturday but more importantly in 2 weeks' time.
Off your right shoulder is a trainer's Cox Plate from 7 years ago, Seamus Award. You went there, Danny, and won the horse as a maiden. I mean, can you relive this day?
Oh, very exciting day. He was a horse that had been incredibly unlucky. Really throughout his career. He'd only run about 8 times, being placed in every start, and he just got it perfectly right that day. Chad Schofield rode the horse beautifully. Seamus was a very good horse around Moonee Valley, and he just got everything inch perfect on the day. It was an incredibly exciting day for us.
I know time moves on, and I interviewed Chad Schofield the morning after he won the Cox Plate, and he was looking down the straight, and he was still going there and thinking, this is how I won it. Do you still, when you go to the Valley, capture that moment?
Yeah, I think it does stick with you. I mean, the Valley's just got such a great feel for it, particularly when you get down there, under the Stewards Tower on the winning post there, you have those memories. It's probably my favourite place to watch races anywhere in the world, at Moonee Valley, right on the winning post there, because you're so close to the action. And I certainly still remember Chad coming back to scale and going out on the track and seeing the horse and seeing him.
Tell, please, the Valley members that are watching us and the partners tonight around the story of Russian Camelot, how it kicked off in Europe.
So look, we'd obviously seen the trend with a lot of European horses coming out here and winning, our bigger races, and the price tag on the tried horses was getting higher and higher. So Jerry Ryan actually pioneered buying a few yearlings over there. 50 Stars and Furion were a couple of years older than Russian Camelot, and we'd seen how they'd worked out and decided to go and do the same ourselves. We went to the Tatch yearling sale and bought 2 colts in 2018. Actually, the sale starts again tonight, so it's literally 2 years to the day since we bought Russian Camelot as a yearling.
Well, I was just going to ask you, you're going back tonight to try and buy one?
Yes. No, we bought a few there last year in 2019, and we've got a good list to buy, probably 4 or 5 of them over the next few days as well. And then the process is they just get on the plane, come straight out here. We broke him in the middle of November of 2018, and then he just joined the system, and we had an open mind on him. He was so precocious that we ended up running him last spring against our 3-year-olds as a European 2-year-old, and he won his maiden very impressively, and then came to Flemington Cup week at only his 2nd start, and again ran very well. So he's always had a bit of excitement about him, and he keeps going to that new level every time we ask him to.
We saw him in the Underwood Stakes for his last run. We're going to see him again on Saturday and then to the Cox Plate. But right now he seems to be a happy horse. I saw a tweet from you guys, I think on the weekend, that you were training him down, I think, on Barwon Heads Beach. I mean, he must be a happy horse with all the different environments that you're able to take him to.
Yeah, well, he's been sort of broken in and raised in our environment down at 13th Beach, so that's that's his home. Albeit he spends a bit of time at Flemington. He came up to Flemington on Monday and had a nice gallop on the course proper there this morning. So between those two venues, he does all his work, and he's a happy colt. He's got a great nature. He has been a bit boisterous a couple of times at the races, but he's getting more and more relaxed as he gets further into his career.
We talk that it is slightly different with no crowds and the like, but is that aspect helping Russian Camelot?
Well, particularly with the Cox Plate, Damien Oliver commented that with that start down right in front of the crowd there at the top of the straight, it can be a bit difficult behind the barriers there. He rode, I think he said Glass Harmonium one year, and Glass Harmonium really lost himself and went off in the gates and did his chances in that year's Cox Plate. So he's not disappointed that there won't be a big crowd there this year, albeit I do think, to be fair to Russian Camelot, he's getting better and better every time he steps out.
I saw you just watching Bruce and Richo reminiscing, and Seamus Award is a part of that, but to be a part of the running of the 100th Cox Plate, what does it mean to the Danny O'Brien collective team?
No, it means a lot. I mean, we're all racing fans first and foremost, as much as we're participants. And some of my earliest memories are Dulcify winning the Cox Plate. I think Better Loosen Up was my favourite ever horse growing up. Just loved him. And I'm still disappointed that he got knocked over in that Cox Plate that Superimposed won, because I think he had as much claim on anyone to be the winner that day. So, we have great memories of the race as fans, and we're obviously over the moon that we're going to be participating in the 100th, and that we've got hopefully a really good chance of being in the finish.
And that Cox Plate trophy, just finally, that's off your right shoulder, do you often give it a bit of a rub just to make sure you're superstitious or anything like that?
Look, I might touch it for good luck on the day, but I'd love to find a mate for it, particularly a gold one.
Yeah, particularly a gold one. Hey, Danny, thanks for joining us. Good luck over the next, just under 3 weeks until we get to Moonee Valley.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Good on you, Danny. Danny O'Brien joining us there tonight, helping us for some insight around Russian Camelot, who, as we'll tell you a little while later, is the current Ladbrokes favourite for the running of the legendary Cox Plate 100. Well, let's learn more about the history of the race. Once again, back to Richo and Bruce.
And what makes the race so special is the amphitheatre of Moonee Valley, and where they start, the proximity to the crowd. Bruce, the horse and the jockey, they have to have nerves of steel, because it feels like the crowd's upon you. We've seen horses over 2,000 metres at Flemington and Caulfield where they load way away from the crowd, don't get affected. But you've got to be so special, I think, to handle the amphitheatre and the pressure cooker of a Cox Plate.
Well, if you had Don King, you'd set it up that way. But we did have Don King. We had Ian McEwen, didn't we? Who was the Don King of promoting the race. And you're right. You are so right. I mean, you even go back to the mounting yard and when they come through the tunnel and just that roar from the crowd and all the things that go around it. And as you say, they go down to the start. It's the best start imaginable for this race. Going out of the straight the first time's always dramatic. Things are happening. They go along the side of the course, and then from that bone crusher moment and that Kingston can't win moment, that long down the school side, and then of course the short straight. It's perfect. I mean, it's not perfect in terms of if you were what's the best chance for every horse in a race, but you know what? The best horse always wins the race, because I think in many ways they do take off at the 600 and the 800, and there's very few excuses in Cox Plates. Can you remember many? I can't. Generally speaking, unless you're naturalism and you're back Tim, generally speaking, I reckon you feel like the best horse wins.
I 100% agree with you. I love putting you under pressure because I know you always respond. Sunline versus Northerly. They won 2 each. Who was better?
Well, head-to-head Northerly, I think, because he was probably stronger in a fight, but I think she reached a higher level at times. She's got a few more Group 1s. I think she was more versatile. I mean, he was a remarkable horse at Flemington over 2000 and probably even better at Moonee Valley. So to answer your question, if it was a dogfight, I'm backing Northerly. But when you collectively look at their career, who had the bigger career? Well, gee, he won a Caulfield Cup, didn't he, and 2 Cox Plates. I still think she's got her nose in front. It's a good question, and I could have a great argument with a lot of people out there watching tonight. But I would have her career slightly in front of his. But in the dogfight with 50 metres to go, I'm backing him.
Have we seen a more dramatic Cox Plate, or maybe even a better image, that when they fanned wide and all the horses were under riding and Bossy was sitting on the diva just looking around? Is that one of the great moments in sport?
Absolutely. What an image that was. And you're right, he was so confident as he swept up in that beautiful tsunami wave before the turn. And how important that race was for her when you think back, Richard. I mean, she'd won a couple of Melbourne Cups. She started that 2005 year by winning the Australian Cup and then went on and won a Tancred. But, you know, 12 months prior to that, she was a great handicapper, not the best weight for age horse in Australia. And the Cox Plate and the Melbourne Cup, obviously, with the third one, which makes her unique. That, you know, week and a half, couple of weeks is just one of the great collective campaigns in the history of the sport, and her Cox Plate win was phenomenal. Bossy absolutely lapped it up, and so did all of us. And what it did, I mean, it was a full stop on the day. It was a full stop on the day because she was the champion of Australasia in more ways than one. But it also did lead to the other race. It did lead to the other race. So the collective connection between the two was very special, dare I say.
Be honest, did you doubt Bart when Bart put So You Think as a 3-year-old in the Cox Plate? Did you realise what Bart realised?
I doubted him. I didn't think he could win that first Cox Plate at all. I mean, it was, what were you doing? You know, this was a raw 3-year-old that had, you know, had a small 2-year-old season and a handful of starts, and yet he did it. And it wasn't Bart's way generally, Richo, was it? It wasn't. I mean, Taj Rossi had done it, so, you know, he what a spring he'd had. But no, I didn't think he could win the first one. But, Jason, when he won the first one, I thought he might win the second one.
And then Coolmore robbed us, because I reckon he would have won a third and maybe even a fourth.
Probably. I mean, in many ways he was right up there with the very best. And what's exciting about what we're going to see this year, well, hopefully, nothing's going to go wrong. Russian Camelot, whilst he races differently, and I know he was born in a different place, but that young stallion, that young dominant horse, and the way Russian Camelot went about his Underwood, did it remind you of So You Think early in that spring? It certainly, that 4-year-old spring, it reminded me of So You Think. Did you get any of that?
Oh, absolutely I did. And that's when actually I looked around and I thought, gee, I wish there was a crowd here, because I think racing fans would flock to him. He's a magnificent animal, and, well, he's going to take a power beating on the great race.
And there's been an array of Kiwis that have come across and got the Cox Plate. Of course, Ocean Park did it, Savabeel did it. And talking of Savabeel, he's got a daughter running in this year's Cox Plate. The news confirmed yesterday that Probabeel is going to come down after winning the Epsom to run in the Cox Plate. And it's great to have Jamie Richards staying up over in New Zealand with us. Good evening, Jamie.
Absolutely, yeah. Good evening to you too, Andrew. And, you know, a pleasure to be preparing a mare like Probabeel for the 100th running of this year's Cox Plate.
How has she come through the Epsom win from last Saturday? Obviously, it's good, because you wouldn't have been saying, let's go to Moonee Valley next.
Yeah, really pleased with how she's come through, Andrew. The reports from Ashley and Craig have been very encouraging, and she's a pretty straightforward, sound sort of mare, touch wood. So she's come through it in good shape, and 3 weeks, you know, down to the valley, up to 2,000 metres, you know, looks ideal.
Were you thinking of the Cox Plate even before the Epsom?
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of been well talked about between the team and Brendan and Joe and Henry Plumtree, and you know, the race has so much prestige around it this year, being the 100th running of it, the Gold Cox Plate. You know, all of those sorts of factors for Brendan and Joe were very enticing, and obviously the mare's in really good form. So, you know, why not? Let's have a throw at the stumps, and we certainly think that she's up to being very competitive.
How do you see her going in a Melbourne direction? I know you're pretty keen to get her to breakfast on the Tuesday prior to, but just the Melbourne direction?
Yeah, no problems. Look, she trains in Matamata here when she's here, left-handed each day, trialled and raced that way over here in New Zealand, and she's a very adaptable mare with a wonderful attitude. So I don't think it should hold any fears at all.
Her overall qualities seem to be spot on this year. I mean, she's been a very good filly and now mare, but her ability out of the barriers, she just seems to be really sharp there now. She's an overall better horse than maybe earlier on this year.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the case, and I think we think most of that's come through maturity. Like the majority of the Savabills, they get better as they get older, and that's certainly the case with her. She's carrying more condition this preparation. She's getting away from the barriers cleaner. She doesn't appear to be going through that flat spot quite so bad at the 600. And, you know, there's a number of factors there, but I think also the good weather that Sydney's had has been a big help to her. She's been tripped up by the tracks there previously at Randwick and at Rose Hill, and she is much more effective on top of the ground.
And Jamie, the influence of running in the 100th Cox Plate, you tasted it last year with Tiako Shark running so well. What about you as a trader to be back at the Valley again?
Well, I won't be there personally, but it'll be great to have Probabil running there and representing Tiako and Cambridge Stud and the breeders, Waikato Stud, and the whole, you know, New Zealand thoroughbred industry. But it's a time-honoured race, and as you say, got a taste for it last year with Tiako Shark running a very gallant third. And, you know, we're really looking forward to the challenge, and it's a race that we think she can be very competitive in.
Yeah, let's hope so, Jamie. I thank you for spending some time for us tonight over in New Zealand, and we look forward to following Probabil. Kieran McAvoy is maintaining the relationship following the Group 1 win in Sydney last Saturday. Well, we're going to talk very shortly about one of the greatest races that we're ever probably going to see. That'll be coming up. Stand by. But let's go back to Bruce and also Richo for their last part tonight.
And I've deliberately left to last your love affair with Winx. We know that she's a brilliant horse, but I've been lucky enough to know you for a long time. I've never seen the reaction that you've had to a horse like you've had to Winx. Why? Why is she so special to you?
It's hard to answer it from the heart. I can answer it from the head, and that's 4 unbeaten springs, 4 unbeaten autumns, and you're there and you see her building. But she did touch me like no other horse in my lifetime has touched me, and I'm not sure of the answer, but, you know, you can argue a lot of things about her and history and Far Lap and all the benchmarks. I don't think we haven't seen a CV like it, Richo. And really, it's the Cox Plate that began it. And I know her final race was at the Queen Elizabeth. That when you look back now on the 33 consecutive wins and the 25 Group 1s, what's the core? What's the absolute thing? What's the pink diamond? The pink diamond's 4 Cox Plates. That's the pink diamond with Winx. The first one was wow, you know, off an Epsom with just her third run. The second one was, boy, I thought Hartnell was really good. And the third one was, gee, Kingston Town's not alone. And then the build up to the fourth one and just the nerves that surrounded it. You know, that third one when Humidor got to her flank. I mean, I don't know how you felt, Jason. I felt terrified. I really did, and yet she was able to hold him. And then the last one was, it was comfortable in a way, wasn't it? It was comfortable in a way, but it was, well, it was thrilling. And so when you look back on her, I mean, she's helped maintain the Cox Plate, not only as the Australasian Championship, but on a worldwide scale. And you think that, you know, we had a colt win it from Ireland the year before, and we had a mare, a filly win it from Japan the year after. So you look at those last 6 years and you think about just how important they've been in world racing, and to have her right there. No one, not in my lifetime. We're not going to see a horse, I think, attempt 4 Cox Plates again. So the beautiful thing about the WS Cox Plate and Winx is that without it, she wouldn't be Winx, and without her, the Cox Plate would be slightly poorer. It would still be very rich, but it wouldn't be quite the same because they went hand in hand, and what she did was remarkable. It was historic, and for all of us that were lucky enough to be there, it's unforgettable.
Did you take a moment just to look around on that fourth one and look around and see the crowd and see the reaction and just soak it in for that last time?
For sure. I mean, and you know that better than most. You're in with the madding crowd all the time. I'm in a studio that sometimes goes down and does those interviews. And one of the most thrilling things for me, Jason, in my whole broadcasting career is to have left that box at Moonee Valley and to go down and join you and to talk to Huey and to talk to the connections, and you know what that's like. That gave me almost as big a thrill as anything I've ever done in my life in sport. I mean, Kathy's Kathy, and she'll always be Kathy. There's only one Kathy. That's different. But and you do all that, and then you do reflect, and you look around, and you see just that blue and white, and you think about all the elements that come together. Yeah, no, it was. Aren't we lucky?
Yeah, we are so lucky. I was thinking, and I reflect a lot on the Cox Plate because it's a race that I just love. I describe it as the best 2 minutes of sport. I know it's a throwaway line, but I'm trying to find an area which is just so unique, and it is approximately 2 minutes. To end us, is there a phrase, is there a paragraph, is there a saying, is there a way to describe the Cox Plate for all of our Moonee Valley Race Club members that you think just sums up the race?
Well, it's a good question, and you could go so many different ways with it, couldn't you? I mean, you could go from a spectator's point of view and that amphitheatre that you talked about and how much everybody enjoys to go there. You can go from a jockey's point of view, a trainer's point of view, an owner's point of view. But I go from the horse's point of view, Richo. I think the Cox Plate's about the horse more than probably any other race, and I believe that. And why is that? Because it's defining. It changes a horse's legacy. It takes a great horse to a champion, and then it can take a champion to an icon. Kingston Town did it, Farlap did it in the 1930s, and certainly Winx has done it in the last few years. So for me, it's about the thoroughbred. It's about that beautiful racehorse who, with 400 metres to go, is under pressure. The lungs are bursting, the crowd is roaring, and they haven't even got to the top of the straight. But their destiny is in front of them, and that's what the race does. So that's what I'm going to leave you with.
Beautifully described. Bring on Cox Plate 100.
Thank you to Bruce McAvaney for joining us there, and joining us live is Richo, Jason Richardson. Gee, that's terrific, Richo, just to reminisce. And I've got to ask you at the same time, what's your favourite?
You can imagine, Andrew, that conversation went on and on and on. And we only cut it really short because I was pushed for time because I knew that Bruce only had a limited amount of time. I could have sat there and done that for hours on end and just asked so many questions to him. You know, we're really lucky in racing, aren't we, that he's passionate about racing. He's a national treasure. So that was a great treat for me to sit and chat, and hopefully the Moonee Valley Race Club members enjoyed it. A big hi to you and also to Michael. Gee, reflecting on the Cox Plate, I mentioned in my chat with Bruce about, I think, the memories, and you guys will remember your very first Cox Plate when you fell in love with the sport. I mentioned that it was 1992 and that incredible superimpose, and that was because I was with, my mates and I'm a teenager. In fact, I bought a prop. I had my hat back to front and I had a singlet on and I was cheering like that. That was that was my first memory of a Cox Plate, and Super came down the outside and won. And then eventually now, working in the industry, I've got an opportunity to appreciate it. My pocket says I loved Seamus Awards because he kicked clear and I was on him as a maiden. And remember the drama building up to that when Atlantic Jewel was a scratching leading into it and she was a short price favourite. I think about some of the, I was on Faulkner of the year that Adelaide come over the top. And then you go to the Winx era and Liz Grishow last year. I mean, there's so many highlights, but for me, I fell in love with it with Super and going with my mates and just thinking it was fantastic. I loved what the Diva did and those images of the Diva coming so wide and winning. And I could keep talking about great memories forever, mate. You'll eventually have to wind me up, but I love the race.
No, I think Dulcify, and I think the other thing that goes with it, as we watch Makybe Diva, one of the great moments, Richo, where the horse was so wide and we're all holding our breath, but there was Bossy, as calm as ever. But I think to go with it are some of those race calls. The race calls stay with it. You can still hear Bill Collins with the Dulcify one, let alone what else you've spoken about tonight. I mean, these are great memories with the calls, but obviously the horses.
Isn't it interesting you say that? I think more than ever, the call is what we remember in the Cox Plate. Remember that build-up, and I think Michael would have been part of it probably, 12 years ago when he started. He might have actually been the one that brought it in, but where those moments before the Cox Plate, when the crowd's a little quiet and they're just loading behind, and all of a sudden we play the old replays and we hear those calls, and you hear Kingston Town can't win. The crowd still roars 30 years later. Kingston Town can't win, and then we talk about Mackay Diva, and the earth begins to rumble when, might and power. It's the great callers. Aren't we privileged in Australia to have so many great callers?
No doubt about that. I've got to ask you just one briefly, because we're about to go and talk about the greatest Cox Plate ever. But how do you think this year's race is shaping up? We've just heard about Rush and Camelot, but the internationals are here.
Yeah, I tackle it from four angles. The best of the Victorians is clearly Rush and Camelot. Probability, you just spoke to Jamie Richards, has a huge opportunity to come down and with that Epsom form. I look at the X Factor being the 3-year-olds, and I think King's Legacy is the most suitable for a Cox Plate from a 3-year-old. But don't underestimate these Europeans. And I think a lot of people thought that the key Europeans won't come. Don't disrespect Armory. That Irish Champion Stakes form is elite. And as Michael's touched on, Sotsas has franked that. I got on very early with the Armory bandwagon, so I'm invested there. I'll be barracking for Rush and Camelot because it's great to see a champ win, and we'd love to see a new champion in the sport, but he is going to need to be every bit as good as we think he is.
No doubt about that. Thank you, Richo, for joining us on our special preview about the Ladbrokes Carnival. Enjoy your day on Saturday, of course, Saturday week or Saturday fortnight, and of course the Friday, the Manikato.
Love the Friday night. It's absolutely compelling viewing. So please, everyone, tune in. It's a great race, the Manikato Stakes, as we've seen it time and time again. And the two race meeting Carnival is special. It's fantastic.
Thanks, Richo. Jason Richardson joining us. I did get there eventually, isn't it? It's Saturday fortnight.
The 24th.
But you're going with the date.
Yeah, but Richo raises a great point too. The two-day carnival has redefined what the Cox Plate is. Yeah, there was some concern early days that the Cox Plate being the second last race on the two back-to-back meetings, that the track might not be as good as what it could be, but the team do a fantastic job preparing the track to get it ready for the two-day carnival, and I'm sure it'll be in tip-top condition again this year.
Well, let's welcome in a couple more guests for you watching wherever you are. And the first of those is Carl de Croo, who is the Executive Director and Corporate Development of Ladbrokes. And, of course, also joining us is Greg Carpenter. Greg, very much in the mix always, the Executive General Manager of Racing at Racing Victoria. And particularly Greg, he's one that always talks to the committeeman on the Tuesday morning before you decide that final field.
Of course, Greg plays a very important role in shaping the final field for the Ladbrokes Cox Plate. Even last year when we had a glut of horses, we had a total of 19 final acceptors. So we do. Greg's the oracle. It's great to have him sitting at the table there to share his views on each of the runners.
Stand by for the oracle, not far away.
14 all-time greats are coming together for one unmissable virtual race. Who are you backing in Ladbrokes' greatest ever Cox Plate? Head to Ladbrokes for all the details and watch the race on 7-2. Ladbrokes, back yourself.
Yes, the Ladbrokes' greatest Cox Plate ever. It was announced today and we're going to get more detail for you. As I say, Carl is online from Ladbrokes, and Greg, Carl, this was an unbelievable announcement earlier today. Please give us some more detail.
Yeah, look, thanks, Andrew, and hello to all the members and sponsors out there. It's been a real privilege to join the show tonight, and what a terrific show it's been. More done to Richo and Bruce in particular. Great to go back down memory lane. And I guess that's really where the inspiration for this concept has been drawn from. 99 years of Cox Plate action, and really, as Ladbrokes is the major sponsor of the race and the carnival, we really put our thinking caps onto what's the appropriate tribute for this moment in sporting history, and we've come up with the greatest ever Cox Plate. Look, it's been a huge project, to be honest, to just bring it to the starting gates today, and but already I think it's starting to achieve exactly what we were hoping to do. At Ladbrokes, first and foremost, we're racing fans, fanatics. We are great followers of racing history, and we love racing debate, and really that's what this race is about. To bring together champions from across different eras, and then of course we've added a wild card factor in there with the introduction of some international wild cards in Frankel as the champion of Europe, Secretariat as the champion of the Americas, and Deep Impact as the champion of Asia, coming in to join this elite field, which features, of course, then 11 other former Cox Plate winners. And it's been no mean feat to come up with that field. It's certainly sparked a lot of debate already in terms of the makeup of the field. We sort of sent out a bit of a teaser on social last night, and it really caught fire. We ran a poll today of who you thought was going to be the winner. We could only nominate 3 horses, and other as another category. So we had Winx, Farlap and Secretariat. No surprise, 68% of the 3,000, now nearly 4,000 votes has been for Winx. But the 5% of other has been very evenly split, and there's been plenty of debate about particularly the horses that haven't made the field. So I particularly feel, and I'm thankful that wasn't my job. That sat with people like Greg Carpenter, who's been so good to not only throw his significant clout behind the concept, but to put some skin in the game and come up with this field along with Michael Brow, Dean Shannon, of course, our CEO, and Gary Chris from Timeform. So those are the guys in the hot seat, but I think they've done a pretty fine job of coming up with this crack field for the greatest ever Cox Plate.
Well, as we're about to show you that field, Greg Carpenter joins us. Greg, I thought you would have been busy enough with everything else that's going along in the spring, and here you are lobbing with this 14-horse field for the greatest Cox Plate ever, including 3 horses that have really sparked discussion today.
Hi, Andrew and Michael, and hello to all the members, friends and sponsors of the Valley. It is always a busy time during spring, but when you're invited to participate in a concept which is so exciting as the greatest Cox Plate field ever, it's hard to say no. And as Carl rightly said, the discussion has been enormous today. My inbox has been full. And as always with these sorts of things, it's more about those that are left out than the 11 Australasian champions that end up making the field. A lot of apologies around Rising Fast and Red Craze, Mackay Diva, the great mare that Bruce and Jason talked about so eloquently, and even right back to Chatham, the horse that ran second to Far Lap and also won the 32 and 34 Cox Plate. So there's been a lot of advice given to me today, but we've picked 11 great champions of the Australasian racing scene. And as Carl said, the champion Frankel, the undefeated champion of Europe, Deep Impact, the mighty horse from Japan, and Secretariat. And when you've grown up looking at some of the replays of Secretariat, that 31-length romp on dirt in the Belmont Stakes, it really has brought a great interest and a different dimension to this Cox Plate, the greatest Cox Plate of all time.
Michael, it must have been hard for you all to sit down and just imagine what it can bring, and it will come to life on Manikato Stakes night, but just take us through the emotions of it all.
Well, when you've got a list of such great champions to choose from, you're never going to be able to squeeze 20 into 11 spots, particularly with the 3 key internationals that have been included in the field. But what I like behind this, with the work that will now be done through the data and the analytics, the algorithm that will be input, so you'll see on the screen as well that we've picked a year. So Winx won 4. Right. As an example, we've picked her second win when she won by 8 lengths. So the team will do all of that work. Barriers will come into it as well. We've put up a good forward track at the Valley for the greatest ever Cox Plate. I'm fascinated, like all racing fans, to see how this plays out. There is a chance, of course, Winx becomes a 5-time Cox Plate winner.
Well, we always wanted, Greg, we always wanted to see Frankel and Winx run. Well, this is going to be it.
Well, it's interesting. Michael's building in all those factors. I wonder if one of them will be pilot error. Poor Ronnie Turcotte from the United States on Secretariat, drawn barrier 13. He's never been to the Valley. It'll be interesting how he rides there. Tom Quealy on Frankel and Yataki Taka on Deep Impact. At least Ron, he only rode Secretariat one way, and that was to drive forward and keep the pace on. It's going to be a hot speed. Marty Sinan's produced a good 4. Tulloch set an Australasian record for 10 furlongs when he won his Cox Plate We know that Winx broke the track record twice, and Secretariat broke track records all around America. And just talking about Secretariat, I thought most people would say, well, how will a dirt horse handle the valley and handle the turf at the Great Race Course? He did actually run twice on turf. He won the Man of War by 5 lengths, and he won the Canadian International by more than 6 lengths. So other than the barrier draw, the times that they ran, it's all these factors coming together. And I'm one of those people that don't know who the winner's going to be and really looking forward to the end result. And seeing those visions and the graphics today in the press, it's really exciting. I can't wait to see the final race.
Well, Carl, take us through that, because we've got some of the vision here for our members. This will really take you into what we can expect.
Yeah, look, it's been a huge body of work, and I think, we all realise the challenges of COVID. So normally Inspired Entertainment, who have been our partners to build out the race, would come and survey the track and map the track and alike. Now, obviously, they're UK-based. That wasn't possible. So it's a real credit to them that they've managed to do this all on the back of drone footage and other results that we've been able to push through, the historical footage that they've been able to use to map the course. We obviously haven't seen the final race either, because we're offering the market on it. But we have seen some trial footage to okay the layout of the valley, and it really is stunning, to be honest, the way that's been portrayed. So we're really, really excited to bring the race to life. I think we've seen a few virtual races over the years, but nothing like the quality of the production of this one. I think we'll all be really proud and excited by the end result that we'll get to see on Manikato night.
And Carl, with that, this is a betting race. Ladbrokes have got a market opened, which I know has moved around already today.
Yeah, look, that's right. We did launch the market, and that was an important element for us. There was a fair bit to work through to get us to that point, because there's a fair bit of regulatory territory to work through. But we've managed to do that, and it was a really important element for us, because ultimately we want people to debate. We want people to have an opinion. And how do people best have an opinion on our platform? Well, it's to have a bet and put your money where your mouth is. So, look, it is a $20 max bet per runner. So it's very much framed in the novelty market space, but it's an important way for people to engage. And let's put it this way, you don't get to back Winx at $5 too often. So, look, there's no surprise that when the markets did open late last night, all of the early money has run one way, and it's been the blue and white of Winx that has captured, 80% of the market to date. I think that may even up a little bit. We've already had some of the form experts on Twitter, if you want to call them that, give some advice that she's a sitting duck in this field. I'm not so sure about that, but look, I think we'll see definitely some money come for the internationals. I think Farlap has already attracted a fair bit of interest, and I think the great thing is we all have our favourites. And I think just reminiscing through the races that were mentioned by Richo and Bruce, for me, it was the octagonal saintly years where I really fell in love with the Cox Plate. I'm filthy on the judges, no offence, Greg, that they couldn't find a place for them in the field. But I think, all of us will be looking to, maybe our head says that Winx can win this race. But I think, there'll be a place in our heart for the Might and Powers. Such a big, free-flowing runner at the front of the field. And certainly talking to Pumper Cassidy about it yesterday, he's very confident. So, which will surprise all of you. But I think that's the great part of this, is that we really want people to get behind it and be engaged. And
I should mention Northerly at $41. Please, come on. How does Northerly, Greg Carpenter, $41 for a star like him? He's going to be the one that's going to be pushing the head through. He'll be the one winning.
Greg didn't set the market. Ladbrokes.
No, I know that, but I mean, come on, Greg, $41.
I can maybe even get you a twist if you like, mate. We'll see. But,
Well, I'd have to say, Andrew, you've stolen my thunder, because I was about to say there's one absolute overs in the field, Northerly, the outside of the race at $41. We heard Bruce and Richo talk about the great rivalry between Northerly and Sunline. Well, Northerly beat her every time that they met. Paddy Payne's riding Northerly, not Damien Oliver. So that means it's the win that he had over Defier and Grandira. Grandira came to Australia that year with an international rating of 125. He was the best European horse, older European horse of that year. And behind Northerly in that particular Cox Plate were Fields of Omar, Sunline and Lonhro. He beat one of the best Cox Plate fields of all time. And when you've got Might and Power being driven forward by Pumper Cassidy, you've got Sunline running forward, Ronnie Turkett sending Secretariat to the lead.
Hang on.
The great warrior Northerly is going to be sitting 6th or 7th, and he'll be finding the line very strongly in a dogfight. And the other one that probably be suited by a fast pace will be Deep Impact. There'll be no doubt that he'll be sweeping home at the end of it as well.
Geez, I reckon, I know no one's going to see this until the actual broadcast because of regulations and the like, but I tell you something, Northerly, it's going to be tough. He's the tiger.
Carl, is there any chance Andrew can use an odds boost and go 41 to 50?
For Andrew, I'm sure we can do that.
Yeah,
Look, I think that, it is really important to point out the integrity and that has been put around this. I think, on the surface, people can say a virtual race that, a bookmaker's had a big say in pulling together. And I think what's been really important here is that that Racing Victoria have partnered with us on the race, as has Moonee Valley, Channel 7 to show the race. So, we've had to really prove to those loyal partners the credibility and integrity measures that we've put around this race. So, look, we won't know the result, and there's some anxious people, particularly in the trading floor at the moment, not knowing how things are going to unfold. And, we will have Matt Hill calling the race. We touched already during the telecast tonight that how the iconic callers are as important to the makeup of this race as the race itself sometimes. And so I think, look, we're really fortunate that Matt's agreed to call the race and to lend his profile and presence to it. I think that will all add to the theatre of the night.
Carl, just before you leave us, bring us up to date around the Cox Plate race. Cox Plate 100 coming up in 17 days. We had Glenfiddich disappointingly come out of the entries today, but what's the market telling us?
Well, I did wonder with your list of guests tonight whether you were deliberately trying to torture Ladbrokes, because certainly Russian Camelot, to no surprise, has been absolutely well found into the market. And as you say, with Glenfiddich coming out today, Russian Camelot into $3 in the all-in market. So very, very well found, but certainly has had the build-up that is deserving of the quote. I think maybe some of the internationals are probably still over the odds a little bit. We heard Richo talk about Armory. I think the $9 on offer there for Armory is still, pretty good value, and I'd expect that will probably shorten up a little bit as we build up into the race. I think Aspeter, is going to be well found. And Probabile has been a big mover since the impressive display on the weekend. $21 into $15 since confirmation that's the direction Connections will go. I think the other big mover that we saw over the weekend was Colding, just super impressive in Sydney. $51 into 17. No confirmation there yet of a start, but you would think with the weight of money that has flowed that direction that there may be a bit of a pointer for punters in that in itself. So, look, I think it's just really framing as a really great edition of the Cox Plate and very fitting of the 100th running.
Carl, thanks very much for joining us. A lot of activity, I reckon, around the Cox Plate greatest race ever. Lots of build-up there, and we'll certainly stay in contact with you about the lead-up.
Really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. And Greg, you've got a bit of thinking to do, mate. We've just got to work out here the speed map and everything like that. And that's just for the Cox Plate 100. I'm not talking about the greatest race ever. I'm now confused about what I'm looking at.
I'm keen to see what the speed map experts come up with there. You've got I think half of them are natural leaders. To be honest.
Exactly.
It'll be a hot pace out of the straight the first time in the greatest ever Cox Plate. Can I just say though, for the members that want to participate in the promotion, it is a $20 max bet, as Carl mentioned, and Ladbrokes and the Moonee Valley Racing Club have secured a free-to-air broadcast on Manikato Stakes night from 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock. The Ladbrokes greatest ever Cox Plate will be run at 8:30 on the 7-2 telecast.
Okay, and that'll link into the Manikato.
Correct. So the Manikato Stakes this year will be run as the last race on the night at 8:45 p.m.
Righto, obviously with the earlier starts with COVID and the like that you've been doing. Hey, Greg Carpenter, thanks for joining us. Good luck with the rest of the spring. We can't wait for Cox Plate 100.
Thanks very much, Andrew. We took Dexter Day, and as Michael said, it's a fantastic field. Russian Camelot, such an exciting horse. Armory, the Northern Hemisphere 3-year-old. He's more highly rated than Adelaide was when he came out and won it. But I think it's just going to be a fitting contest for Cox Plate 100.
14 all-time greats are coming together for one unmissable virtual race. Who are you backing in Ladbrokes' greatest ever Cox Plate? Head to Ladbrokes for all the details and watch the race on 7-2. Ladbrokes, back yourself.
Righto, to wrap it all up, Michael, we've got some questions that we asked for at the start. The first of those comes through from Peter. If COVID restrictions change, will it be possible to have the Cox Plate breakfast with restriction in numbers?
We're walking a very fine line here, Andrew. The announcement from the Premier is mooted for the afternoon of the 19th, Sunday the 19th of October. So we'll have a little bit of time up our sleeve to make those decisions. We're mapping multiple scenarios at the moment, so members will get an email following the Premier's announcement on the 19th of October with what the restrictions will be in place for the breakfast with the best. It is going ahead. It will be telecast on racing.com. Followed, of course, by the barrier draws for both the Ladbrokes Manikato Stakes and the Ladbrokes Cox Plate. But on Monday the 20th, we'll have an answer for the members based on the advice from the Premier.
We just need those numbers to keep coming down.
We do.
That's what we need. From Pamela, when we eventually get back on course, whether, with time, will you be holding a special members event to celebrate the running of the 100th Cox Plate?
Of course, we do love a party and we do love our members, so we may as well bring the two together. We do need to celebrate 100 years of history of the WS Cox Plate, and when the time is right, we will make that happen. But also, too importantly, at the Valley, next March on the 13th, we are hosting the third edition of the All-Star Mile. So members can look forward to a build-up with the promotion leading into the All-Star Mile, and hoping social distancing will be relaxed by that stage, that the COVID pandemic might be a thing of the past, and we look forward to getting the members on course for the All-Star Mile.
Okay, and the last of the questions, other than the jackets, is there any other Cox Plate 100 merchandise?
From a good friend, Benny Carbonaro. Benny collects his hats. He does love a hat. So, Benny, I'll reach out to you. We'll make sure that you get yourself a Cox Plate 100 mask, a Cox Plate commemorative gold pin, and also to the jacket and the hat for your collection. He's a great ambassador for the Valley, Benny, so we'll make sure we certainly look after him.
Righto. Now, we asked you to ask some questions, and you've sent some through, and we've got a prize to do with that, in the dining area for the 2021 All-Star Mile, as you mentioned, to be run at Moonee Valley on Saturday, March 13. And the prize winner tonight is K Ferrugia. So well done to you. I'm not too sure whether it's a male, female or whatever, but a K Ferrugia will be enjoying that, the All-Star Mile at Moonee Valley, as you say, on March 13. We've got through, Mike. How are we gone?
We have. Just two other things that we'll quickly cover off for the members. We have confirmed, of course, that the 2020 Ladbrokes Cox Plate will be run at 4:15 p.m. So that's tying in through Channel 7 with the telecast of the AFL Grand Final coming out of Brisbane. And there's also, too, stay tuned to celebrate what we think is the greatest Cox Plate champion of all, Winx. There's a little special feature that will make its way through to the new Tote Park. So that'll form part of the celebration of Cox Plate 100, and we're looking forward to sharing that with the members over the next 2 weeks.
Saw some photos of that new area. Look fantastic. Can't wait to be able to get there and enjoy it. So
It'll be a spectacular new entrance to the Valley Racecourse.
It will be. I want to thank Bruce McAvaney and, of course, Jason Richardson for being a part of it. Ladbrokes, of course, Treasury Wines and all the other Moonee Valley partners and members, for you for being a part of tonight. Michael, the countdown is literally on from right now. Good luck. I hope it really does unfold in the manner that we want.
Thanks, Andrew.
What a day it will be. 17 days away is the Cox Plate, but what memories we've had so far, and what a day 2020 will bring.
Kingston Town can't win. Here come the New Zealanders, our Waverley Star and Bone Crusher. They've raced to the lead, 600 out. Have they gone too early?
Saintly on the outside, Falante strikes back, dead heat. Northerly after Sunline down the outside from Viscount. They got very tight.
But So You Think wins his second. Bart's done it again. Seamus Award, the maiden has won it.
Humidor on the outside is trying hard. It's Winx in front. Humidor's coming at her.
Tobin Bronze's last run in Australia is a success.
But the great grey guns in front. Dulcifies Rubicon.
Octagonal Fields of Over.
And the land of the rising sun wins the Cox Plate.